"You're trash. Do you hear me? You are nothing but a piece of trash," my son scraped off the bottom of his shoe. Her voice, it wasn't loud. No, shouting is for people who lack conviction. She stood in the doorway of what was once my home, my sanctuary. Her arms crossed over a cashmere sweater, the color of old money. Her name was Eleanor, and she was the mother of the man I loved. The man who was now just a collection of photographs on the mantelpiece she was about to strip bare. "Look at you," she continued, her eyes raking over me. My worn-out jeans, the faint stain of baby food on my sleeve. Pathetic. He's gone, and you're still here. A parasite. Did you really think we would let you keep this house? His house? I clutched my daughter, Lily, tighter against my chest. She was only a year old, her small body warm and heavy, her breath a soft puff against my neck. She was all I had left of him, of Michael. "This was our home, Eleanor," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "Michael bought this for us, for our family." A cruel, humorless smile played on her lips. "Family. You were a temporary diversion, a mistake, and now the mistake needs to be corrected. You have 1 week to pack your things and get out. The house has been sold." The world tilted. 1 week to erase a life, to pack up the ghost of a husband and the future of a child into cardboard boxes. "You can't do this," I pleaded, the desperation tasting like ash in my mouth. "Where are we supposed to go? Lily is his daughter, your granddaughter." She took a step forward then, her expensive perfume filling the air, suffocating me. She didn't even glance at the baby. It was as if Lily was invisible to her. "That thing," she said, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper, "is the reason he's dead. You and your bad luck. You were a curse from the day he met you. Now, get out of my sight and get out of my son's house." She turned and walked away, the click of her heels on the hardwood floor echoing like gunshots in the silence. And I just stood there, a 22-year-old widow, holding my entire world in my arms, watching my life get demolished, brick by painful brick. My husband, Michael, he'd told me he was going on a business trip. A week, he'd said. Just 1 week. He never came back. A car accident on a lonely highway, and just like that, he was gone forever. He'd left me alone, 7 months pregnant, adrift in a world that suddenly felt hostile and cold. And his parents, they didn't just mourn him, they blamed me. I refused to leave. I couldn't. This house was the only tangible piece of him I had left. The walls held his laughter. The worn spot on the sofa was where he'd sit and read. He'd painted the nursery for Lily himself, his voice full of dreams as he talked about the future. How could I walk away from that? My own parents were farmers back in Idaho, struggling to make ends meet. Going back there wasn't an option. I had to make it here, in Seattle, for Lily. So I stayed. And that's when the war truly began. When they realized they couldn't legally force me out because Michael, my sweet, thoughtful Michael, had put my name on the deed. They resorted to other tactics, crueler tactics. One night, I woke up to the sound of shattering glass. They had hired someone to throw rocks through the living room window. Another night, our trash cans were overturned, garbage strewn across the small lawn like a vile welcome mat. They had "Go Home Gold Digger" spray painted on my garage door. It went on for a week, a relentless campaign of terror designed to break me. I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police. Eleanor was issued a restraining order, a warning. She stopped, but the hatred didn't. From that day on, she and my daughter were dead to her. Have you ever felt so completely and utterly alone? A single mother still reeling from grief, with no job, no support system, and a baby who depended on me for everything. Life became a daily grind, a desperate scramble for survival. I did everything. I handed out flyers for cheap pizza joints, with Lily strapped to my chest in a carrier, the Seattle drizzle soaking through my jacket. I worked as a delivery driver for a convenience store, the late-night shifts blurring into a haze of exhaustion. I cleaned the sprawling, empty houses of the wealthy, the scent of their lemon-scented polish, a bitter reminder of the life I'd lost. And through it all, Lily was my silent, steadfast companion. My God, that child was an angel. She'd sleep peacefully in her carrier, her little head nestled under my chin, while I walked for miles, while I scrubbed floors, while I stocked shelves. Her quiet presence was a constant source of strength. She was the one beautiful, perfect thing the universe had given me, the anchor that kept me from drifting away entirely. Some days, on the long walk home, I'd talk to her, my voice a low murmur against the city's hum. "How are you doing, my little bean? Was today okay? I'm so sorry, Lily. So sorry you have to go everywhere with your tired mommy. But one day, I promise you, one day you'll go to daycare. You'll have friends and teachers who read you stories, and you won't have to be stuck to me like this. We just have to get through this part, okay? Just you and me, your daddy. He's watching over us. I know he is. And he is so proud of you. So we have to be strong. We have to be happy so he can rest easy. I love you, little bean. And your daddy loves you so much." Our little apartment, the one Michael had filled with so much love, became our fortress. It was small, but it was ours. And in the evenings, after a shared meal of whatever I could afford, we'd play on the floor, her giggles filling the space, chasing away the shadows. I thought that would be our life, just the two of us, against the world. I would be her mother and her father. I would be enough. I never, ever planned on meeting someone else. I never wanted to. But life, as it turns out, doesn't really care about your plans. Our world was about to be turned upside down, all because of a routine vaccination and a very, very bad stomach ache. It was one of those chaotic mornings at the community health clinic. The waiting room was overflowing with crying babies and stressed out parents. I was holding Lily, waiting for our turn, when a sudden, sharp cramp seized my stomach. It was blindingly painful. I doubled over, trying to breathe through it, but it just got worse. I knew, with a terrifying certainty, that I needed a bathroom. Right now, but what could I do? I couldn't take Lily with me. My eyes darted around the room in a panic, and that's when I saw him. He was sitting across the room, looking profoundly out of place. He was wearing a perfectly tailored suit, staring at his phone with an air of detached annoyance, as if the very existence of this noisy, germ-filled room was a personal insult. He looked clean, safe. Before I could second-guess myself, I rushed over to him, Lily in my arms. "Excuse me," I said, my voice strained. "I am so sorry to ask this, but could you please just hold my daughter for a minute? I have a HEAL emergency." He looked up from his phone, his expression a mixture of confusion and horror. I didn't wait for an answer. Another wave of pain hit me, and I knew I was out of time. I gently, but firmly, placed Lily into his lap. "Thank you so much," I gasped, before turning and running towards the restroom. His face was a picture of sheer panic. He was holding her stiffly, like she was a ticking bomb. I heard him ask an older woman sitting nearby, his voice tight with anxiety, "Excuse me, ma'am, am I holding this correctly?" The woman just chuckled. Looks like you're holding a football, son. You men are all the same. Always leaving the baby stuff to your wives. A good man helps out, you know. He looked even more confused. But before he could respond, the nurse called Lily's name. Lily Henderson. Come on back. And so, this complete stranger, this impeccably dressed man who looked like he'd never seen a diaper in his life, became Lily's reluctant father for the day. He carried her into the examination room. I heard him through the door as I was washing my hands. My stomach finally settled. Is that needle really necessary? His voice was sharp with concern. It looks awfully big for such a small person. The nurse, bless her, was patient. It's just a little pinch, sir, like a mosquito bite. And what exactly is in that syringe? Is it safe? Has it been approved by the FDA? Sir, it's the standard state-issued vaccination. It's perfectly safe. Well, just be gentle. As gentle as possible. When I finally walked out, feeling both relieved and deeply embarrassed, I saw the nurse handing a freshly stuck Lily back to him. I rushed forward. Oh, thank you so much, I said, to both him and the nurse. The nurse smiled warmly at me. You're very lucky, she said. Her father was so worried about her. It's wonderful to see a husband who cares so much. Both of us, in perfect, horrified unison, blurted out, "Oh, we're not together." The nurse just raised an eyebrow, said nothing more, and went back to her work. I thanked the man again, my face burning, and took Lily from his arms. He looked relieved to be free. I mumbled another apology and quickly left. I thought that would be the end of it. A strange, embarrassing, but ultimately harmless encounter. But a few minutes later, as I was walking down the street under the hot sun, a sleek, black Audi pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, and there he was. He looked uncomfortable. "Get in," he said, not as a request, but as a command. "I'll give you a ride." "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. Thank you, but the baby," he cut me off, his eyes fixed on Lily. "It's too hot for her to be out like this. Just get in the car." His concern for Lily overrode my embarrassment. "Okay," I said quietly. "Thank you." The car's interior was cool and smelled of expensive leather. It was silent, a world away from the chaos of my life. "My name is Richard," he said after a moment, his eyes on the road. "What's yours?" "Abigail." "And this is Lily." "Lily," he repeated, a ghost of a smile on his face. "That's a nice name. Where's her? Where's your husband? Why wasn't he with you?" The question was innocent, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked out the window. "He's in heaven," I said, the words feeling small and inadequate. "Oh," Richard said, his voice instantly softer. I'm sorry. I didn't know. It's okay." We drove in silence for another minute, and then a new smell filled the car, an unmistakable, pungent, and deeply unpleasant smell. Richard sniffed the air, his nose wrinkling in disgust. "What is that?" "God-awful smell." I could have died right there. My face turned crimson. I stammered, I think Lily just filled her diaper." Richard looked absolutely horrified. He gagged slightly, his hand flying to his mouth. "Oh, God." When we finally pulled up to my apartment building, he practically slammed the car into park. He let out a huge sigh of relief. "Well, Abigail," he said, his voice strained. "It was an experience. I hope we never have to see each other again." He'd barely finished the sentence before he was lurching out of the car, leaning against a tree and throwing up violently. I just sat there, holding my sweet, innocent, poopy daughter, feeling a strange mix of pity and annoyance. I got out of the car and walked past him. "You should probably get used to that," I said, a little bit of an edge to my voice. "You'll get married and have kids one day. This is part of the package." "You wait. Your kid will probably poop right on your head." I heard him retch again as I walked away. I couldn't help but smile a little. What an arrogant, over-the-top man. And I was quite sure I never wanted to see him again, either. Of course, the universe had other plans. That man, Richard, was the heir to the Stonehaven real estate empire. You've probably seen the name on the side of gleaming skyscrapers downtown, the kind of buildings that change a city's skyline. He was the quintessential prince of the city, impossibly handsome, impeccably dressed, and incalculably wealthy. And he was surrounded, constantly, by a flock of beautiful women who would have done anything for a moment of his attention. But Richard had a problem. He was sterile, not in a medical sense, but in a spiritual one. He was a man who lived his life behind glass, terrified of germs, of mess, of any kind of human imperfection. He was cold, emotionally distant, and if he didn't willingly open the door to his world, no one, no matter how beautiful or charming, could ever hope to pick the lock. He truly believed he would never see me again. A messy, chaotic single mother with a poopy baby. I was the embodiment of everything he disdained. Funny thing about fate, though, it has a twisted sense of humor. The more you scream that you hate something, the more the universe seems to conspire to deliver it right to your doorstep, gift-wrapped. A few weeks later, Richard was at a friend's birthday party. It was a lavish affair at some exclusive rooftop bar overlooking the city lights. Richard didn't drink. He couldn't handle it. But his friends were relentless, teasing him, pushing a glass of expensive-looking whiskey into his hand. To shut them up, he drank it, one glass, and that was all it took. The room started to spin. The noise became a dull roar in his ears, and he knew he was in no condition to drive his six-figure car home. He fumbled for his phone to call his assistant, his designated lifeline, but the screen was black, dead. Of course, he stumbled out into the cool night air, leaning heavily against the cold metal of his car, his face flushed, his head pounding. And that's when he saw me. I was on the other side of the street, making my way through the last of a stack of flyers for a 2-for-1 pizza deal. My feet ached. I was just about to call it a night when I saw a familiar silhouette leaning against a car that was worth more than I'd make in 10 years. I squinted. It couldn't be the arrogant, germophobic, vomit-prone man from the clinic. I walked over, a strange sense of curiosity pulling me forward. "You, again," I said, my voice flat. "What's wrong with you now?" He looked up, his eyes struggling to focus. I need a driver. I'm drunk. I just want to go home." He squinted at me. "Can you call someone for me?" A slow, mischievous grin spread across my face. It was perfect. "You found the right person," I said, my voice suddenly cheerful. "I'll drive you. $100, cash." He stared at me, his mind clearly struggling to process the information. You can drive?" I pulled out my worn wallet and flashed my driver's license. It wasn't much, but it was official. "See, fully licensed. So, are you hiring me or not?" He was drunk, dizzy, and desperate. He didn't have the energy to argue or to think it through. He just nodded, fumbling in his pocket for the keys. "Fine, just get me home." He handed me the key fob. A small wave of relief washed over him as he realized I wasn't carrying Lily. No baby, no smells, no potential for biological warfare. He thought for a fleeting moment that this might actually be okay. He was so wrong. I slid into the driver's seat and my jaw dropped. It was like sitting in the cockpit of a spaceship. The leather was so soft it felt like butter. The dashboard was a single, seamless screen of glowing lights and symbols. There wasn't even a place to put a key. I looked around, completely bewildered. How do you start this thing? Richard, who had just managed to buckle himself into the passenger seat, slowly turned his head. His eyes widened in dawning horror. "Are you kidding me?" he whispered. "No, I'm not familiar with this model," I said, trying to sound professional. "Just give me a minute to get acquainted with the controls." His voice was dangerously quiet. "What kind of car do you normally drive, Abigail?" "Oh, back home? A tractor, mostly," I said cheerfully. "You know, one of those big John Deere things for hauling dirt. I've never actually driven a car quite this fancy." A tycoon's son like Richard had probably never even seen a tractor up close, let alone understood what it was. He just stared at me, his face pale. A what? A John Deere? Is that a new electric brand from Korea?" "Never mind," I said, finally finding the glowing start-stop button. "Let's just get you home." I pushed the button, and the engine purred to life with a sound so quiet it was barely there. I put the car in drive, gently pressed the accelerator, and we began to move, very slowly. We crawled out of the parking garage and onto the street at the speed of a nervous tortoise. Richard groaned from the passenger seat. "Are we actually moving? Or are you just pretending?" "I'm going," I said defensively. "What's your speed? Are you even braking 10 miles an hour?" "I'm going 12, I shot back. "It's a nice, safe speed. A turtle could pass us right now," he mumbled. "My grandmother on her mobility scooter could pass us." And that's when something inside me snapped. The exhaustion, the frustration of my life, his condescending tone, it all boiled over. "Oh, you want to see me drive? I'll show you how I drive." I slammed my foot on the accelerator. The pristine, powerful engine roared, and the car launched forward like a rocket, pinning us both to our seats. Richard let out a strangled cry. I weaved through the late-night traffic of downtown Seattle, my hands gripping the wheel, a wild, reckless energy coursing through me. "Oh my God! Slow down," he shrieked, his voice an octave higher than usual. "Are you insane?" I just laughed, a little manically. I swerved around a bus, cut off a taxi, and ran a yellow light that was definitely more red than yellow. "This isn't driving, it's a suicide mission," he screamed, clutching the dashboard as if his life depended on it. "We're going to die." Finally, miraculously, we screeched to a halt in front of a ridiculously large mansion in a gated community. I put the car in park and turned to him with a triumphant smile. "See? Home," I said. Richard didn't answer. He fumbled with the door, stumbled out onto the pristine cobblestone driveway, and immediately began to vomit into a perfectly manicured rose bush. He was shaking, his face a ghastly shade of green. I don't think he knew if he was sick from the whiskey or from sheer terror. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, glaring at me. "Get out," he rasped, "and never, ever let me see your face again." "Hey, I was just doing you a favor," I yelled, getting out of the car. "A favor? You almost killed me." "That wasn't a drive. That was a near-death experience." "Oh, stop being so dramatic," I scoffed. "You're just pretentious." He started to walk towards his front door, swaying slightly. I ran after him. "Hey, wait a minute, my $100. He stopped, groaned, and pulled out his wallet. He shoved a crumpled $100 bill into my hand without looking at me. "Thank you," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "And, for the last time, goodbye." He slammed the heavy oak door behind him, leaving me alone in the driveway. What a jerk, I thought, as I started the long walk to the nearest bus stop. An ungrateful, arrogant, pretentious jerk. Inside, Richard collapsed onto a plush velvet sofa, his head spinning. The world was tilting. What was that woman? He thought. She wasn't a person. She was a natural disaster. A walking, talking, terrifying force of nature. He hated it. He hated her. He never wanted to be in the same zip code as her again. Of course, that's not how the story goes. A few weeks later, my mother called from Idaho. "I'm coming," she said, her voice firm. "You can't do this all on your own, Abby. I'll watch Lily. You go find a proper job. Something stable. Something indoors." And so, with my mom's help, I started looking. I applied everywhere. And one day, I got a call back from a place called Stonehaven Properties. They had an opening for an attendant in their corporate art gallery, located in the lobby of their main headquarters. No degree required, just a warm smile and a willingness to keep things tidy. It didn't pay much, but it was steady, it was safe, and it was indoors. I was overjoyed. Finally, a little bit of stability, a chance to breathe. I had no idea that the man who owned the entire colossal building was the very same man I had terrorized on the streets of Seattle just weeks before. Our paths were about to cross again, not on the street, but in the sterile, polished hallways of his own empire. And this time, there would be no escape. For either of us, my first day at Stonehaven Tower felt like stepping onto another planet. The lobby was a cathedral of glass and steel, so vast and silent you could hear the whisper of a stock ticker from a screen halfway across the polished marble floor. Everyone moved with a quiet, expensive purpose. It was intimidating, but I was just grateful for the steady paycheck, the clean and quiet environment, and the fact that my mother was at home, singing lullabies to Lily. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. That flicker was almost extinguished in the elevator. I was rushing to get back from my short lunch break when I saw the doors to the executive elevator closing. "Hold the door," I called out, dashing forward and sticking my hand between the closing panels. They slid back open with a soft chime, and there he was, Richard. He was alone, standing in the back of the gleaming, wood-paneled box, looking at me as if I were a cockroach that had just scurried in. "Oh," I said, my voice faltering for a second. "It's you." I stepped inside, the doors closing behind me, trapping us in a small, silent space. He didn't say a word. He just stared at me, his eyes narrowed. "What are you doing here?" he finally asked, his voice low and cold. "Did you follow me? Are you handing out flyers in my building now?" I bristled at his tone. "No," I said, lifting my chin. "I'm not handing out flyers. I work here now. Today's my first day." He looked genuinely bewildered. "You? What? You work here? Doing what?" "I'm an attendant in the art gallery," I said proudly. I got the job. I could see the gears turning in his head. The absolute, unadulterated horror dawning on his face that Abigail, the chaotic, tractor-driving, baby-poop-adjacent woman, was now an employee in his pristine, perfectly ordered world. He looked like he was about to call security. I, on the other hand, was still blissfully unaware of his true identity. I just thought he was some mid-level executive with a serious attitude problem. So, I did what any friendly new coworker would do. I smiled brightly and extended my hand. "Well, it's nice to see a familiar face," I said. "Welcome, colleague." He looked at my outstretched hand like it was covered in acid. He didn't move. He just stared at it, then back at my face, his expression unreadable. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened to his floor. He strode out without a word, without a glance back. I dropped my hand, my smile fading. "Or not," I muttered to the empty air. Jerk. The rest of the morning was peaceful. The gallery was quiet, the art was beautiful, and the work was simple. I was gently polishing the frame of a large, abstract painting when I heard a shrill voice cut through the serene atmosphere. You clumsy little idiot. Do you see what you've done?" I peeked around the corner. A woman, who looked like a more severe, female version of Richard, was standing over a young janitorial worker. The young woman was on her knees, frantically trying to mop up a small puddle of water near the other woman's feet. I'm so sorry, ma'am," the janitor stammered, her eyes wide with fear. I'll clean it right up." "Clean it up?" the woman screeched, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "Do you have any idea how much these shoes cost? They're Manolos. This is Italian leather. Your entire year's salary wouldn't cover the damage your filthy water just caused. Are you blind? Or just stupid?" The janitor was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face as she scrubbed at the floor. My blood began to boil. I couldn't stand bullies. I'd had enough of wealthy, entitled people treating the rest of the world like their personal doormat. I walked out from behind the sculpture. "Hey," I said, my voice firm. "Leave her alone." The woman spun around, her perfectly plucked eyebrows shooting up in surprise. "Excuse me? Who are you?" "It was an accident," I said, stepping between her and the crying girl. "There's no need to speak to her like that. What's wrong with you?" A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. "I see. A new employee with a hero complex. Do you want to be fired on your very first day? Because I can make that happen with a single phone call." "Go ahead," I challenged, crossing my arms. "Try it. Let's see how many people are lining up to work for a monster like you." That was it. She lunged at me, her manicured nails aiming for my face. I grabbed her wrists, and she yanked my hair. The janitor, seeing me defend her, jumped up and grabbed the woman from behind. The three of us became a tangled, flailing mess of limbs and angry shouts, right in the middle of the multi-million-dollar art gallery. And that's when Richard walked by. I saw him out of the corner of my eye. He stopped, stared at the chaotic scene for a moment, with an expression of pure, unadulterated agony, and then he turned to walk away. He was actually going to just ignore it. But then, he hesitated. He glanced back, a flicker of something, maybe conflict, maybe a bizarre sense of responsibility. Crossing his face, he let out a long, suffering sigh and walked back. "Victoria, that's enough," he snapped, his voice cracking like a whip. He pried his sister's fingers from my hair and pulled me away from the scrum. My office. Now, he practically dragged me down the hall and into a corner office that was bigger than my entire apartment. The view of the city was breathtaking, but I was too angry and shaken to notice. He slammed the door behind us. "Are you out of your mind?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. "This is your first day, and you get into a fist fight in the main lobby? What is wrong with you? This is a place of business, not a back alley bar." She started it. I shot back, my voice trembling with adrenaline. She was abusing that poor girl. I wasn't just going to stand there and watch. "I don't care who started it. he roared. If you want to keep this job, you will keep your head down, you will do your work, and you will not, under any circumstances, cause a scene. If you can't handle that, you can walk out that door right now. Am I clear? Who do you think you are, anyway? I demanded, my own anger rising to meet his. Talking to me like that. What are you, the king of this place? He just stared at me, a muscle twitching in his jaw. But his gaze flickered down for a second. You're bleeding, he said, his voice suddenly quiet. I put a hand to my nose and it came away red. One of Victoria's nails must have caught me. It's nothing, I muttered, trying to wipe it away with the back of my hand, only succeeding in smearing it across my cheek. Here, he said, his tone softening slightly. He pulled a pristine, white, monogrammed handkerchief from his breast pocket and held it out to me. Clean yourself up. I took it, but without a mirror. I was just making things worse. Is it gone? I asked, looking up at him. No, you've made it worse. He let out an exasperated sigh. Here, just stay still. He took a step closer, taking the handkerchief from my hand. He gently tilted my chin up, his touch surprisingly soft. The air shifted. Suddenly, I was acutely aware of how close he was. I could smell the faint, clean scent of his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. His fingers were warm against my skin as he carefully, methodically wiped the blood from my face. Our eyes met, and for a long, silent moment, the world just stopped. The anger, the chaos, it all melted away, replaced by a strange, humming tension that vibrated in the air between us. My heart was pounding in my chest. It was too close, too intimate. I broke the spell, stumbling back a step. Thank you, I whispered, but in my haste to create distance, my heel caught on the leg of his desk chair. I flailed my arms, trying to regain my balance, but it was no use. I fell backwards, my hand crashing down onto the sleek, silver laptop sitting on the corner of his desk. There was a sickening crunch as the laptop tumbled to the floor, landing with a loud, final thud. The screen was a spiderweb of shattered glass. Richard stared at the broken machine, then back at me. The brief moment of gentleness was gone, vaporized. In its place was a cold, white-hot fury. Oh my God! He exploded, his voice shaking with rage. Every single time. Every time I am near you, my life descends into absolute chaos. That was my life on that laptop. Years of work. I am going to kill you. I was about to fire back some retort, my own temper flaring. But then my eyes fell on the desk. On a gleaming, gold nameplate I hadn't noticed before. It read, Richard Stonehaven, Chief Executive Officer. The blood drained from my face. My entire body went cold. CEO. He wasn't a colleague. He wasn't a mid-level manager. He was the king. And I had just assaulted his sister and destroyed his kingdom's crown jewels. Without a word, I turned and fled from the office, his furious shouts echoing behind me. I ran back to the gallery, my heart hammering against my ribs. I collapsed onto a small stool in the back room, my head in my hands. I'm fired, I whispered to the empty room. I'm so fired. What have I done? I finally get a good job, a real job, and I ruin it on the first day. What am I going to tell my mom? What am I going to do? I couldn't lose this job. I couldn't go back to handing out flyers, to dragging Lily all over the city. I had to fix this. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I stood up and walked back to his office. The door was still ajar. I pushed it open gently. He was on his knees, picking up the pieces of his broken laptop. his shoulders slumped in defeat. I stood in the doorway, my hands clasped in front of me. "Mr. Stonehaven," I began, my voice barely a whisper. "I am so sorry. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. Please don't fire me." He didn't look at me. "An accident?" he said, his voice flat and dead. "You think a simple sorry fixes this?" "I know it doesn't," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "But I need this job. I really need it. It's for my daughter, for Lily. It's so I can give her a better life. Please, sir, give me one more chance. I'll do anything." At the mention of Lily's name, he finally looked up. His expression was still hard, but something shifted behind his eyes. I saw a memory flash across his face, the image of me, standing on a street corner in the rain, a baby strapped to my chest. He remembered. He saw not just the chaos, but the desperation behind it. He was silent for a long time. He looked from me to the broken laptop, and then back to me. He let out a long, slow breath, a sound that was part anger, part resignation. "Fine," he said, his voice weary. "You can stay, but from now on, you will do your job, and you will stay out of my way. And for God's sake, Abigail, try not to break anything else." "Thank you," I breathed. A wave of relief so powerful it almost made me dizzy. "Thank you so much." "Who's watching Lily now?" he asked, his tone softening almost imperceptibly. "My mom," I said. "She came up from Idaho to help. She was worried about me carrying her around everywhere." "Good," he said, nodding slowly. "That's good. A baby shouldn't be out in the elements like that." He dismissed me with a wave of his hand. I practically ran back to my post, my heart still racing. Later that day, I met another gallery attendant named Chloe. She was kind and funny, and we bonded instantly over our shared small-town roots and big city struggles. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe again. I had survived. I still had a job. But I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that my life had just become infinitely more complicated. Victoria, Richard's sister, was not the forgiving type. The fact that I, the lowly new employee who had dared to challenge her, was still employed was a personal affront. She called the HR department, demanding my immediate termination. But HR had their hands tied. "I'm sorry, Miss Stonehaven," the department head had told her over the phone, his voice apologetic. "But Mr. Stonehaven himself has given explicit instructions that Abigail Henderson is to remain in her position. He said if there were any issues, to direct them to him personally." Victoria slammed the phone down, her face a mask of fury. She stormed into Richard's office, not even bothering to knock. "Richard, why is that little witch still working here? She assaulted me. Your sister." Richard didn't even look up from the new laptop he was setting up. "You started it, Victoria," he said, his voice calm and even. "And besides, you were being cruel. The matter is closed." "Closed? It is not closed. I have to see her face every day, the face of the person I hate. Her situation is difficult," Richard said, a hint of something unreadable in his tone. "She's a single mother, Victoria. She has to carry her baby with her everywhere she goes just to hand out flyers. The child is only 8 months old. She needs this job." Victoria scoffed. "She's a single mother? And where is the father?" "He passed away." The words hung in the air for a moment. Victoria was momentarily silenced, though not out of sympathy. It was more like she was processing a new piece of data. "How do you know so much about her?" she asked, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Because I saw her, Richard said simply. I saw her out on the street, trying to make a living. Just let it go, Victoria. For once, just let it go. Victoria, seeing she couldn't win this battle, finally relented, but her resentment festered. Fine, she snapped, but if she ever crosses me again, she's done. I don't care what you say. She's been warned, Richard said, finally looking up at his sister. Just stay away from her. He turned back to his work, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking of me. He didn't understand it, this strange pull, this unwelcome concern for a woman who was the complete antithesis of everything he valued. Oh, Victoria added, pausing at the door. Mom says to be home early tonight. Jessica is back in town, and she's coming for dinner. Richard let out a long, weary sigh. Jessica, the daughter of a high-ranking politician, a woman his mother had been trying to set him up with for years. She was beautiful, intelligent, from a powerful family. On paper, she was perfect, the ultimate merger of wealth and influence. I don't like Jessica, Richard said flatly. I've told Mom this 100 times. Oh, don't be like that, Victoria said, a sly smile on her face. She's lovely, and she's absolutely crazy about you. You could do a lot worse, little brother. You miss out on a girl like that, you'll regret it. It's my life, Victoria. Stay out of it, whatever you say. Just don't be late. You know how Mom gets. She left, and Richard was alone with his thoughts. Every time his family mentioned marriage, mentioned women like Jessica, he felt a suffocating pressure. He was 30 years old, the head of a billion-dollar empire, yet he'd never been in love. He'd never even been on more than a few dates with the same woman. They were all the same, beautiful, polished, and utterly boring, empty vessels. He didn't know what he wanted in a woman, but he knew with an absolute certainty that it wasn't that. Victoria, though she had agreed to leave me alone, had her own definition of the term. The next day, she found a new way to torment me. You, she said, appearing in the gallery with a smug look on her face. Go get me a coffee. Venti, non-fat, extra hot, half-calf, caramel macchiato, and be quick about it. The problem was, the employee elevator was out of service for maintenance. That meant I had to take the stairs, from the 8th floor down to the lobby, and then all the way back up. My legs were burning by the time I returned with her ridiculously complicated coffee. I'd no sooner handed it to her than she took one sip, made a face, and said, "This is lukewarm. And while you were gone, I realized I have a run in my stocking. Go buy me a new pair, nude, size B." And so I trudged back down the 8 flights of stairs, my legs screaming in protest, and back up again. I was used to walking, to being on my feet all day, but this was different. This was a deliberate, cruel act designed to wear me down. The cheap flats I was wearing were a size too small, and by the end of the day, my feet were blistered and raw. But I didn't complain. I couldn't. I just smiled, handed her the stockings, and went back to work. I needed this job too much to let her break me. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. Victoria had finally gotten her petty revenge out of her system and left me alone. As I was packing up to leave, Richard's sister, Victoria, came by to get him. "Rich, let's go. We're going to be late." "I'm coming," he said, grabbing his briefcase. As Richard was driving home, he saw me. I was hobbling down the sidewalk, barefoot, holding my cheap, painful shoes in my hand. I looked like I was walking on glass. He pulled the car over. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice laced with a familiar exasperation. "My feet hurt," I said, not looking at him. trying to make it to the bus stop. He let out another one of his long, suffering sighs. "Get in the car, Abigail. I'll take you home." I was too tired and in too much pain to argue. I climbed into the passenger seat, the relief of sinking into the soft leather so profound it was almost emotional. I leaned my head back against the headrest, closed my eyes for just a second, and the day's exhaustion washed over me like a tidal wave. I was asleep before we'd even pulled away from the curb. Richard glanced over at me. My face, in sleep, was soft and vulnerable. The hard, defensive edges were gone. He saw the faint purple smudges of exhaustion under my eyes, the slight frown that lingered on my lips even in sleep, and he felt it again. That strange, unwelcome pang of something, pity, compassion. He didn't know what to call it, but it was unsettling. When we arrived at my building, he pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. He looked over at me, sleeping so soundly. He didn't want to wake me. He noticed the seatbelt was digging into my neck. "She'll have a mark," he thought. "It looks uncomfortable." He decided to unbuckle it for me, to let me sleep for another minute in peace. He leaned across the console, his arm reaching over me. The space in the car was suddenly very small. He was focused on the buckle, fumbling with it, when I started to stir. I opened my eyes, still groggy with sleep, and lifted my head, and just like that, it happened. His lips met mine. It wasn't a real kiss. It was an accident. A clumsy, unexpected collision of two people in a confined space. It lasted for only a second, a fleeting moment of warmth and softness, but it was enough. He jerked back as if he'd been burned, his eyes wide with shock. I wasn't trying to. "I was just trying to get the seatbelt," he stammered, his usual composure completely shattered. I just stared at him, my mind slowly catching up to what had just happened. But strangely, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even flustered. I just felt calm. "I know," I said, my voice quiet. "It was an accident. Thank you for the ride." I opened the door and got out, leaving him sitting there in his silent, expensive car. He just stared after me, his fingers slowly rising to touch his own lips. "That was a kiss," he thought, his mind reeling. It definitely was. So why? Why is she so calm? Why isn't she freaking out? He was still sitting there, lost in a daze, when his phone buzzed, jolting him back to reality. It was Victoria. "Where are you?" she demanded. "Mom is having a fit. Jessica is here. You were supposed to be home 20 minutes ago." "I'm on my way," he mumbled, his mind still on the ghost of that accidental kiss. It was a strange, unfamiliar, and deeply unsettling feeling. He drove home in a fog. He walked into the house to find his mother, Elizabeth, pacing in the foyer, her face a thundercloud. "Richard, where have you been? The entire family is waiting for you. Jessica has been here for half an hour." "I had to take care of something, Mom," he said, his voice distant. "Take care of what? Jessica is here." "Jessica," he repeated, as if the name itself held some magical power. At that moment, Jessica herself appeared, gliding into the room with the effortless grace of someone who had never known a moment of hardship. She was stunning. She wrapped her arms around Richard's neck. "There you are," she cooed. "I've been waiting for you." Richard gently but firmly unwrapped her arms. "I just got back from work," he said, taking a step back. "I'm not clean." "Oh, you smell wonderful," she purred. "I'm hungry," Richard announced, walking past her towards the dining room. "Let's eat." The dinner was an ordeal. Jessica chattered on, her eyes fixed on Richard. Elizabeth, his mother, kept trying to steer the conversation towards their future together, dropping hints about wedding venues and grandchildren. And Richard was a million miles away. He was mechanically eating his food, but all he could think about was the accidental kiss, the feel of my lips, my calm reaction. And as he sat there, lost in thought, he muttered something under his breath, just loud enough for everyone to hear. It was a kiss. So why wasn't she flustered? Why did she act like it was nothing? The table went silent. 4 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him. Jessica looked wounded. Richard? Who did you kiss? His mother's voice was sharp. Richard, what is this about? Victoria just looked intrigued. Oh, little brother, do you finally have a girlfriend? The questions came at him all at once. He was cornered, and in a moment of sheer, unthinking panic, it went with it. Yes, he said, surprising even himself. Sort of. It's new. When it's more serious, I'll bring her home to meet you all. The look on Jessica's face was one of pure devastation. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I have to go, she said, her voice thick with unshed tears. She fled from the room. Richard, go after her. Take her home, his mother commanded. She can take a cab, he said with a shrug. His mother was furious, but Victoria just laughed. Well, Mom, it looks like he's finally found someone. Maybe we should just let this play out. Elizabeth, accepting temporary defeat, turned her full attention to Richard. Fine, but you will tell me everything. What is her name? What does her family do? Where did you meet? Later, Mom, he said, pushing his chair back. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. He needed to escape. He needed to think. What had he just done? He'd invented a girlfriend to get his mother and Jessica off his back. A girlfriend who, in his mind, looked suspiciously like a certain single mother with a knack for causing chaos. At least tell me her name, his mother called after him. He paused at the door, a name popping into his head, seemingly from nowhere. Lily, he said, and then walked out before anyone could ask another question. His mother and sister were left staring at each other in confusion. Lily? Victoria said, a thoughtful frown on her face. That sounds more like a kid's name than a woman's name. She paused, a sudden realization dawning on her. Oh my God. Mom, I think he just lied to you. He doesn't have a girlfriend. He made the whole thing up. Elizabeth let out a frustrated groan. That boy. Why must he always be so difficult? Meanwhile, upstairs in his room, Richard was pacing back and forth, replaying the accidental kiss over and over in his mind. The feeling was still there, a strange warmth that had settled deep in his chest. It was annoying. It was distracting. It was like he was coming down with a fever. And that night, he did. He woke up in a cold sweat, shivering uncontrollably, despite being under 3 heavy blankets. The doctor was called. A bad case of the flu, he said. But Richard knew better. This wasn't the flu. This was the Abigail effect. The first time they'd met, he'd thrown up. The second time, he'd nearly had a heart attack. And now, after a simple, accidental kiss, he had a raging fever. It was official. The woman was a curse. A beautiful, infuriating, chaos-inducing curse. And he knew, with a sinking feeling of dread, that he had to stay away from her, for his own health and sanity. For the next week, Richard actively avoided me. It was almost comical. I'd see him down the long marble hallway, and he would abruptly turn and walk in the opposite direction. If I was waiting for the elevator, he would take the stairs. He was treating me like I was radioactive, and honestly, I was confused. What had I done? I was the one who should be weirded out, right? He was the one who had accidentally kissed me. Finally, I couldn't take the bizarre, silent treatment anymore. I waited for him outside his office at the end of the day. The moment he saw me, he tried to duck back inside, but I was too quick. "Richard," I said, blocking his path. "We need to talk." He looked like a cornered animal. "There's nothing to talk about," he said, his eyes darting everywhere but at me. "Yes, there is," I insisted. "Why are you avoiding me like I have the plague? Is it about the other night? He finally looked at me, his face a mixture of frustration and something else I couldn't quite decipher. "It's not that," he mumbled. "Then what is it?" I pressed. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, it's me," he finally admitted, his voice low. "Every time I'm around you, something bad happens to me. I get sick, I almost die, my laptop gets destroyed. You're like a walking black cat." I stared at him for a second, and then I started to laugh. I couldn't help it. It was the most ridiculous thing I had ever heard. "A black cat? Are you serious? You think I'm a curse?" "It's not funny," he said, though a reluctant smile was tugging at the corner of his mouth. "It's a legitimate pattern of misfortune." I stepped closer to him then, my laughter softening into a gentle smile. The space between us crackled with that same strange energy from his office, from his car. His breath hitched. His eyes locked on mine. "Richard," I said, my voice soft, "you're overthinking things. You're an intelligent man, but sometimes you get lost in your own head. It was an accidental kiss. Just a moment. It doesn't have to mean anything. We're just two people who work in the same building. Strangers, really. Let it go." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, his heart hammering against his ribs. He felt it again, that strange, feverish feeling. "Why does she do that to me?" he wondered, pressing a hand to his chest as if to still the frantic rhythm. "Why does she make me feel so out of control?" He couldn't get me out of his head. He tried to work, but my face kept appearing on his computer screen. He sat in meetings, but all he could hear was my voice. He was distracted, irritable, and utterly captivated. During a major project proposal meeting, he was staring off into space, a faint, dopey smile on his face. When the project manager asked for his final approval, startled, Richard slammed his hand on the table. "Yes, approved," he boomed, startling everyone in the room. A few moments later, while the team was deep in a technical discussion, a soft, unmistakable snoring sound filled the conference room. They all turned to see their CEO. The formidable Richard Stonehaven had slumped forward, his head on the polished table, fast asleep. That afternoon, fate, in its infinite and cruel wisdom, decided to throw another wrench into the works. Richard was leaving the building when he ran into Jessica, and she wasn't alone. She was holding hands with a handsome, smiling man. "Richard," she chirped, her voice falsely bright. "What a coincidence. I'd like you to meet my new boyfriend, Kyle. He's the CEO of Sterling Bank." Richard just nodded, his face impassive. "Congratulations," he said. "And how are you?" Jessica asked, her eyes glittering with malice. "Still single, I presume? You know what they say about handsome, wealthy men who can't seem to hold down a relationship. People start to wonder if there's something wrong with them." The dig hit its mark. Richard's jaw tightened, and in another moment of pure, unadulterated panic, he lied again. "Actually," he said, forcing a casual smile. I do have a girlfriend. You've just never met her. Jessica's smile faltered. She hadn't expected that. Oh, really? Well, that's wonderful. In fact, Kyle and I are going out for dinner tonight. Why don't you and your girlfriend join us? A little double date? It was a trap. He knew it was a trap. But his pride, his stupid, stubborn pride, wouldn't let him back down. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. We'd love to. Great, Jessica beamed. 7 o'clock, the new Japanese place downtown. Don't be late. She and Kyle walked away, leaving Richard standing on the sidewalk, a cold knot of dread forming in his stomach. What had he done? Where on earth was he going to find a girlfriend in the next 2 hours? He got into his car, his mind racing. He needed someone, anyone. And then he saw me walking down the sidewalk, my shift finally over. An idea, a terrible, brilliant, insane idea, began to form in his mind. He jumped out of the car and called my name. Abigail. Wait. I turned, my expression wary. What is it now, Richard? Are you going to accuse me of causing a sudden hailstorm? No, he said. His voice rushed. I need your help. It's an emergency. I crossed my arms. What kind of emergency? I need you. I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend, just for one night. I stared at him, dumbfounded. You want me to what? Absolutely not. No way. Find someone else. I'm not getting involved in your weird, rich people drama. I'll pay you, he said, his voice laced with desperation. $10,000. I scoffed. Do I look like someone you can just buy? 20,000. I hesitated. That was a lot of money. But the principle of the matter. $100,000, he said, his eyes pleading. Please, Abigail, you'll get a new dress, a fancy dinner, and $100,000. I'm begging you. $100,000. That was life-changing. That was a down payment on a future. That was security for Lily. I could work for years and never see that kind of money. I looked at his desperate face. I thought about the money. Deal, I said. The next hour was a whirlwind. He whisked me away to a high-end boutique that looked more like a museum than a clothing store. He picked out a simple, elegant black dress that probably cost more than my rent for the entire year. He pushed me into a salon where a team of stylists fussed over my hair and makeup. When I emerged, I didn't even recognize the woman in the mirror. She was polished, sophisticated, beautiful. Richard was waiting for me, and when he saw me, his jaw literally dropped. He just stared, speechless for a moment. Well, I said, doing a little spin. Do I pass the pretend girlfriend test? You look incredible, he stammered. He cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. He pulled a small, velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a simple, stunning diamond ring. Here, he said, taking my hand. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, just for tonight, so it looks convincing. It's beautiful, I whispered, admiring the way it caught the light. If you ever need a pretend girlfriend again, you know who to call. This gig has some serious perks. Don't get used to it, he grumbled, though he was smiling. Now, remember what I told you. You're my girlfriend. We're in love. Be convincing. Don't make me look like a fool. Don't worry, I said, linking my arm through his. I leaned in close, my voice a playful whisper in his ear. I'm a great actress. I love you, honey. The words were a joke, but they sent a jolt straight through him. He looked down at me, at my smiling face, at my arm linked through his, and for the first time, the lie didn't feel like a lie at all. It felt surprisingly real, and that scared him more than anything. We walked into the restaurant, a united front. Jessica and Kyle were already there, and the look of pure shock on Jessica's face when she saw me was worth more than the $100,000. She had expected him to show up with some vapid socialite. She had not expected me. The dinner was a masterclass in subtle warfare. Jessica spent the entire evening trying to trip me up, to expose me as a fraud. "So, Abigail," she said, her smile as sharp as a knife, "Richard's mother can be particular. I'm sure she'll have a hard time accepting someone who isn't from a certain kind of family." Richard started to protest, but I just smiled sweetly. I subtly held up my hand, as if to brush a stray hair from my face, making sure the diamond ring he'd given me flashed under the restaurant lights. "Oh, Elizabeth is wonderful," I said, using his mother's first name like we were old friends. "She's been so welcoming." Then, for the final killer blow, I put my other hand on my stomach and let out a small, theatrical sigh. Honestly, she's just so excited about the baby. She hasn't had time to worry about anything else. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica and Kyle stared at me, their mouths hanging open. I saw Richard choke on his water out of the corner of my eye. "You're pregnant?" Jessica stammered. I gave her a shy, demure smile and a little nod. "We were going to wait to tell people, but, well, Richard's mother is just so impatient for a grandchild." Richard, to his credit, recovered quickly. He reached over and put a hand on my arm, his face a perfect mask of doting adoration. Jessica looked like she had been slapped. The game was over. She had lost. She made a flimsy excuse, and she and Kyle left shortly after. The moment they were gone, Richard turned to me, his eyes wide with a mixture of horror and awe. "Pregnant?" he whispered fiercely. "You told her you were pregnant? Are you insane?" "It worked, didn't it?" I said with a shrug. "She's gone. She'll never bother you again." I looked down at the tiny, artfully arranged pieces of fish on my plate. "Now, can we order some real food? I'm starving. I don't understand how you rich people eat this stuff. It's like an appetizer for an ant." Richard just stared at me, and then a slow, genuine smile spread across his face. He started to laugh, a real, unforced laugh that reached his eyes and made him look years younger. That night, something shifted between us. The pretense, the animosity, the awkwardness. It all started to melt away, replaced by a tentative, fragile connection. He started to see past the chaos and saw the woman underneath. And I started to see past the arrogant CEO and saw the lonely, vulnerable man he tried so hard to hide. We talked for hours that night about everything and nothing, and for the first time, being with him didn't feel like being caught in a storm. It felt is less than #0. 3# is greater than quiet. It felt safe. He didn't know it yet, and I certainly wouldn't admit it, but his carefully constructed, sterile world was beginning to crumble, and mine was about to get a whole lot bigger. While Richard and I were forging our strange, new connection, his mother, Elizabeth, was on a mission. The name he had dropped, Lily, had planted a seed of suspicion in her mind, and she was determined to get to the root of it. She conducted her own quiet, discreet investigation, pulling threads, asking questions. But the name Lily Henderson yielded nothing. It was too common, a ghost in the system. The few breadcrumbs Richard had left her led nowhere. She sat in her pristine living room, sighing in frustration as she spoke to Victoria. "I can't find a single thing on this Lily girl. It's like she doesn't exist." That's because she doesn't, Mom, Victoria said, not looking up from her fashion magazine. I told you, he made her up. Richard is changing though. I've noticed it. He seems lighter, almost happy. It's weird. I'm sure he has a girlfriend, but it's not this imaginary Lily. Well, whatever is going on, he needs to get serious. A man in his position needs a wife, a family. Speaking of which, Elizabeth said, her sharp gaze landing on her daughter. When is Marcus coming home? You two have been together for 7 years. It's time to settle down. Victoria's smile tightened just a fraction. He gets back tomorrow, Mom. After 3 years away, he's finally coming home. Good, Elizabeth said, satisfied. He's a good boy, an orphan, yes, but responsible. You bring him over for dinner as soon as he's settled. I'll handle everything. The man in question was Marcus Vance. He and Victoria had been college sweethearts, a seemingly perfect couple. But 3 years ago, his parents, who had retired to a small town in the south of France, were killed in a tragic car accident. Grief-stricken, Marcus had gone back to his parents' home to settle their affairs and observe a traditional 3-year mourning period. It was a long, painful separation, punctuated only by Victoria's occasional visits. Now, he was finally returning. The moment he stepped out into the arrivals terminal at SeaTac Airport, he saw her. Victoria was waiting, looking as beautiful and stylish as ever. But as she ran towards him, her face alight with joy, Marcus felt nothing. The spark that had once burned so brightly between them had dwindled to a cold, dead ash. He forced a smile as she threw her arms around him. Marcus, you're finally back, she cried, her voice thick with emotion. I've missed you so much. Don't you ever leave me again. It's good to be back, Vic, he said, his voice flat. He gently untangled himself from her embrace. People are staring. Let them stare, she said, grabbing his hand. I'm with the love of my life. Come on, let's go home. She held his hand tightly all the way to the car, but it was a one-sided connection. For 3 years, their love had existed in phone calls and text messages, an abstract concept. Now, faced with the reality of her physical presence, Marcus felt a profound and unsettling emptiness. Victoria took him back to his small, modest house, a world away from the Stonehaven mansion. It was a simple, 2-bedroom bungalow that was, by a strange twist of fate, located directly across the street from my own apartment. In fact, our 2 front doors faced each other, sharing a small, communal walkway. Victoria spent the rest of the day playing the perfect doting girlfriend. She cleaned his dusty house, stocked his empty fridge, and cooked him an elaborate welcome home meal. But when evening came, and she hinted at staying the night, he gently pushed her away. You should go, Victoria, he said, his voice soft but firm. Your mother will worry. My mother wants us to get married, she said, her voice hopeful. She'd be thrilled if I stayed. I just got back, he said, avoiding her gaze. I need some time to readjust. Go home, Vic, please. Defeated, she left, her face a mixture of disappointment and confusion. She had waited 3 long years for this man, and now that he was back, he felt like a stranger. As she was walking to her car, she saw me, carrying Lily and a bag of groceries. Victoria, I said, surprised to see her in my quiet, working-class neighborhood. What are you doing here? Her eyes narrowed. Abigail, I should ask you the same question. Do you live here? Yes, I said, shifting Lily on my hip. Right there. Are you visiting someone? My fiancé lives here, she said, her tone sharp. We're about to become neighbors." She glanced at Lily, her expression softening for the first time. "Is that your daughter?" "Yes, this is Lily. She's beautiful," Victoria admitted, a flicker of genuine warmth in her eyes. "How old is she?" 10 months. "Well," Victoria said, her usual hard demeanor returning. "I have to go. See you around." Neighbor. As she drove away, a strange thought occurred to her. Lily. The baby's name is Lily, and Richard said his girlfriend's name was Lily. No, it must be a coincidence. I'm overthinking things. The next week at work, the company threw a huge party to celebrate record-breaking profits. It was a lavish affair at a downtown hotel. I didn't want to go. I never felt comfortable at those kinds of events, surrounded by people whose shoes cost more than my monthly budget for food. I told my manager I had to get home to my daughter, but Richard wouldn't have it. He found out I wasn't on the attendance list and called me from the party. "Abigail? Where are you? The party's already started." "I'm not coming, Richard. It's not really my scene. Everyone is here. You should be here too. It's a celebration of your hard work as much as anyone else's. It's okay, really. You all have fun." "Abigail," he said, his voice dropping to a low, non-negotiable tone. "If you are not at this party in 30 minutes, you're fired." He hung up. I stared at the phone in disbelief. The nerve of that man, but I couldn't risk it. With a groan of frustration, I called my mom, put on the one nice dress I owned, and went to the party. When I walked in, Richard's face lit up. He seemed genuinely happy to see me, and I had to admit, seeing his smile did something to my insides. The party was loud and overwhelming, but he made a point to stay near me, making sure I was comfortable. But it didn't take long for the whispers to start. I was sitting at a table with a few other women from the administrative department when the cattiness began. "So, Abigail," one of them, a woman named Sarah, said with a saccharine smile, "it must be so difficult, being a single mother. I can't even imagine." I just shrugged, not wanting to engage. Another woman chimed in. "Oh, I know a single mom in my neighborhood. She does very well for herself, dates a lot of wealthy, older men. They're very generous with their support." The implication was clear, and it was ugly. I didn't say a word. I just picked up my wine glass and took a long, slow sip, and another, and another. I wasn't a big drinker, but their condescending prying, their smug little smiles, it was all too much. I kept drinking, the wine, a warm, fuzzy blanket against the coldness of their judgment. And then I was drunk. Not sloppy drunk, but the kind of drunk where the filter between your brain and your mouth completely dissolves. The kind of drunk that makes you brave. I stood up, a little unsteadily. I looked at Sarah, who was still smirking at me, and then I did something I would never have done sober. I leaned forward and headbutted her. Not hard, just a firm, surprising thud that sent her sprawling backwards in her chair, her eyes wide with shock. The table erupted into chaos. The other women shrieked and scattered. I grabbed a pitcher of water and poured it over another woman's head. Before I knew it, Richard was there, pulling me away from the scene. "Abigail, what are you doing?" I looked up at him, my vision a little blurry. And in that moment, in my wine-addled brain, he wasn't Richard, the intimidating CEO. He was Michael, my husband, come back to me. Tears filled my eyes. I threw my arms around his neck, burying my face in his chest. "Michael," I sobbed, my voice muffled against his expensive suit. "I miss you so much. Please, Don't leave me again. Stay with me and Lily, please." Richard froze. He looked down at me, clinging to him, calling him by another man's name. The entire ballroom had gone silent, everyone staring at us. He could feel the weight of their judgment, their curiosity. But he didn't push me away. He just stood there, his arms coming up to tentatively hold me, his heart pounding a strange, unsteady rhythm in his chest. "It's okay," he whispered, his voice so soft only I could hear it. "I'm here. I'll take care of you." He scooped me up into his arms and carried me out of the ballroom, leaving 100 whispering guests in his wake. He drove me home, my head resting on his shoulder. When we got to my apartment, he carried me to the door. I was still clinging to him, my arms wrapped tightly around his neck. He tried to gently set me down, but I wouldn't let go. And then he kissed me. This time, it wasn't an accident. It was slow and gentle and deliberate. It was a kiss full of a longing he didn't understand and a tenderness he didn't know he possessed. It was intoxicating. We stood there in the hallway, lost in the moment, until the sound of my apartment door opening startled us apart. My mother stood there, a look of profound disapproval on her face. "Abigail," she said, her voice sharp. Richard immediately let go of me, his face flushing. "Ma'am," he stammered. She had a little too much to drink. I was just bringing her home." "I can see that," my mother said, her eyes like ice. She took me by the arm and pulled me inside. "Thank you for seeing her home. Good night." She closed the door in his face, leaving him standing alone in the hallway, his heart still racing from the kiss. He drove home in a daze, a feeling of pure, unadulterated happiness washing over him. It was a foreign and exhilarating sensation. He was in love. He, Richard Stonehaven, the man who had never felt anything, was completely and utterly in love with a chaotic, head-butting, widowed single mother. The next morning, he practically skipped into the office. He was humming. He said good morning to the security guard, the janitor, the barista in the coffee shop. People stared at him, bewildered. Richard Stonehaven did not hum. He did not smile at strangers. He went straight to the art gallery, a goofy, love-struck grin on his face. I was at my desk, nursing a terrible hangover and a vague, horrifying memory of the night before. "Good morning, my love," he said, his voice full of a cheerful intimacy that made my blood run cold. I sprayed a mouthful of coffee all over my desk. What did you just call me?" I whispered, horrified. "My love," he repeated, beaming at me. "Isn't that what people in love call each other?" "Are you insane?" I hissed, grabbing him by the lapels of his suit and pulling him down to my level. "What is wrong with you? Were you drunk last night too?" "Of course not," he said, looking confused. "But you told me you loved me." "I did what?" I shrieked. "You said you loved me," he insisted, and then we kissed. It was very passionate. Don't you remember? My mind was a complete blank. I had no memory of any of it. All I knew was that this man, my boss, was standing in front of me, claiming we were in love. I was mortified. I was furious, and I reacted the only way I knew how. I started hitting him. "You stay away from me," I yelled, pummeling his chest with my fists. "You're crazy. You're making things up. Ow. Abigail, stop. Why are you hitting me?" he yelped, trying to fend off my blows. "It's me, your boyfriend." I finally shoved him out of the gallery and slammed the door. I leaned against it, my heart pounding. He had to be lying. I would never, ever confess my love for that arrogant, infuriating, and ridiculously handsome man. Would I? The fact that I couldn't remember was terrifying. Richard stood in the hallway, utterly bewildered, his suit rumpled, his heart aching with a confusion he had never known. Last night, she had been in his arms, whispering another man's name. But he had felt, for the first time, like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And now, she was looking at him like he was a monster. He didn't understand. He had finally opened the door to his carefully guarded heart, only to have it slammed shut in his face. The aftermath of my drunken confession and subsequent violent denial was a thick, awkward silence. Richard, bruised and bewildered, retreated to his corner of the building, and I retreated to mine. He sent me a text message later that day. "I'll be waiting for you at the main entrance after work." I ignored it. The last thing I wanted was another confusing, emotionally charged confrontation. As the day ended, I saw him standing by the glass doors, a hopeful look on his face. I ducked out a side exit and hurried home. When I got to my apartment, I found a scene that made my heart ache. My mother was sitting on the floor, patiently helping Lily take her first wobbly steps, and sitting with them, playing with a small stack of colorful blocks, was Marcus, my new neighbor. He looked up as I walked in, a warm, easy smile on his face. "Hey," he said. "You must be Abigail. I'm Marcus." "Hi," I said, a little surprised. "It's nice to meet you. Your mom was just telling me about you," he said, his eyes kind. "She told me how you used to have to carry Lily with you everywhere. You're a strong woman." I felt a blush creep up my neck. "She talks too much," I mumbled, but I was grateful. It was the first time a man had looked at me with simple, uncomplicated admiration in a very long time. Marcus was a breath of fresh air. He was kind, gentle, and incredibly helpful. Over the next few days, he became a regular presence in our little apartment. He fixed my leaky faucet, repaired a flickering light in the hallway, and even managed to get the ancient, rattling fan in my bedroom to run silently. Our home, a place that had felt so empty without a man's touch, was slowly coming back to life under his patient, capable hands. "You know," he said one evening, as he was rewiring a faulty outlet, "I know what it's like to be on your own. My parents are gone too." "I'm so sorry," I said, my heart going out to him. "It's okay," he said with a sad smile. "We have that in common, I guess. We're both just trying to figure out how to build a new life from the pieces of the old one." We would talk for hours. He was easy to be with, a calm port in the storm of my life. He adored Lily, and she adored him. He would spend hours on the floor with her, building block towers and making silly faces, his laughter filling our small apartment. He was everything a good man should be, and the more time I spent with Marcus, the more complicated my feelings became. Meanwhile, Marcus was living a double life. In the evenings, he was the kind, attentive neighbor, the man who seemed to be slowly falling for me and my daughter. But during the day, he was Victoria Stonehaven's long-suffering fiancée. She would show up at his house unannounced, clinging to him, her voice a constant stream of affection and future plans. "I miss you so much," she'd say, wrapping her arms around him as he tried to work from home. He would gently push her away. "Vic, people can see. Let them see. I'm hugging my future husband." Her presence was suffocating. The love he had once felt for her had been eroded by time and distance, leaving behind only a sense of obligation. She talked endlessly about their wedding, about the life her mother was planning for them, about the high-level position Richard was holding for him at Stonehaven Properties. "My mother said she'll take care of everything," she said one afternoon. "And Richard is so excited for you to start. He's been saving the head of marketing position for you for 3 years. That's great, Vic," he'd say, his voice lacking any real enthusiasm. "So?" she'd press, her voice soft and hopeful. When are we going to make it official? My mother wants you to come for dinner to talk about, you know, an engagement. Marcus would always find a way to deflect, to postpone. Let me get settled in at work first, Vic. I want to feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet, not just riding your family's coattails. I have my pride, you know. It was a plausible excuse, and it worked. Victoria, blinded by her love and her desperation to keep him, would agree. Of course, my love. I've waited 7 years. I can wait a little longer. She had no idea that his heart was no longer hers to wait for. It was being given, piece by piece, to the single mother who lived across the hall. The day Marcus started his new job at Stonehaven Properties was the day our 2 separate worlds collided. I was walking to work, and he fell into step beside me. "Hey, neighbor," he said with that easy smile of his. "Mind if I walk with you? You work downtown?" I asked, surprised. "As of today, I do," he said. "I'm the new head of marketing at Stonehaven." My stomach dropped. You're working for Richard. He's my future brother-in-law," he said, and for the first time, his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Small world, huh? We walked the rest of the way in a slightly awkward silence. When we got to the building, he was greeted with a hero's welcome. Richard clapped him on the back, genuinely pleased to have him there. Victoria immediately attached herself to his arm, beaming with pride. "Welcome back, my love," she said, kissing his cheek. Marcus just smiled politely. His eyes, however, found mine across the crowded lobby. He gave me a small, almost imperceptible smile, a silent acknowledgement of the strange, secret world we now shared. Later that day, he came by the gallery. "So," he said, leaning against the reception desk, "this is where you work. It's a nice setup. It pays the bills," I said. "So, you and Victoria, you're really getting married?" He looked down, tracing a pattern on the marble countertop with his finger. "That's the plan," he said, his voice quiet. My friend and coworker, Chloe, who had witnessed our friendly neighborhood walk to work that morning, pulled me aside as soon as he left. "Okay, you have to tell me what's going on," she whispered, her eyes wide. "You know Marcus Vance, the new head of marketing? Victoria Stonehaven's fiancé?" "He's my neighbor," I said, trying to sound casual. "Your neighbor?" she squeaked. "Abby, be careful. Victoria is crazy possessive. If she thinks for 1 second that you're trying to move in on her man, she will destroy you. She's been with him for 7 years. He just got back after being away for 3 years to mourn his parents. It's a whole tragic, romantic story. I'm not trying to move in on him," I said, a little too defensively. "We're just friends." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. There was a spark between Marcus and me, a quiet, growing connection that was becoming harder and harder to ignore. And it was dangerous. Not just because of Victoria, but because of Richard. Richard, who was watching everything. He saw the way Marcus looked at me. He saw the easy smiles we shared, the comfortable way we talked, and it was driving him insane. He was the CEO. Marcus was his sister's fiancé, his future brother-in-law, and I was the woman he was secretly, hopelessly in love with. He was caught in an impossible, tangled web. One afternoon, Chloe and I were eating lunch in the break room when Richard appeared. He was holding a cup of coffee. "Abigail," he said, his voice a little strained, "I brought you this." I took it, surprised. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Stonehaven." And he continued, clearing his throat. I was wondering why you haven't been answering my texts. Is your phone broken? No, I said, avoiding his gaze. I've just been busy. I see, he said, his jaw tightening. Well, check your messages. I sent you one this morning. He turned and walked away, his shoulders stiff. I pulled out my phone. There were 3 missed calls and a series of increasingly frantic texts from him. Can we talk? I need to see you. Abigail, please don't ignore me. I was staring at the screen, a guilty knot forming in my stomach, when Chloe walked back in, holding another cup of coffee. This is from Marcus, she said, setting it on the table in front of me. He said to tell you he hopes you're having a good day. I looked at the 2 cups of coffee sitting on the table, one from the powerful, intense CEO who made my heart race, the other from the kind, gentle neighbor who made me feel safe. It was a perfect, tangible representation of the impossible choice I was facing. I knew I had to pull back. I had to create some distance. That evening, as I was leaving work, I practically ran out of the building, trying to avoid both of them. But just as I cleared the main doors, I bumped right into Marcus. Abigail, there you are, he said, his face lighting up. Let's walk home together. I can't, I said quickly. I'm in a hurry. I have to get home to Lily. I started to walk away, but he fell into step beside me, a playful smile on his face. Come on, neighbor, let me walk with you. He pulled a small bag from his briefcase. I brought you something. Green mango with chili salt. I saw it at a street cart and thought of you. My resolve melted. How could I stay mad at someone so thoughtful? We walked home together, sharing the bag of mangoes, laughing and talking like old friends. Being with him felt so easy, so normal. It was a feeling I hadn't realized how much I missed. What I didn't know was that Richard was watching us from his office window on the 50th floor. He saw us walking together, saw us laughing, saw Marcus hand me the bag of mangoes, and a hot, unfamiliar feeling washed over him. It was jealousy, pure and sharp and ugly. He had everything in the world, but in that moment, he would have traded it all to be the one walking by my side, making me laugh. He tried to call me, but I didn't answer. I saw the call come in, saw his name on the screen, and deliberately ignored it. At the exact same moment, Marcus's phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was Victoria. He silenced the call and put the phone back in his pocket. Who was that? I asked. Nobody, he said, with a dismissive wave of his hand. Just a telemarketer. We were both lying. We were both hiding. And we were both heading straight for a collision. When Richard couldn't reach me, he left the office, a storm brewing in his eyes. He ran into Victoria in the hallway. Vic, have you seen Marcus? No, she said, her voice tight with frustration. I've been calling him, but he's not picking up. I don't know where he is. Richard knew exactly where he was. He was with me. The situation was a ticking time bomb, and it was about to explode. Richard couldn't take it anymore. The unanswered texts, the image of Marcus and me walking together, it was gnawing at him, a corrosive acid eating away at his composure. He left the office, got into his car, and drove straight to my neighborhood. He needed to see me. He needed to know what was going on. When he pulled up to the curb in front of my worn-down apartment complex, his heart felt like it stopped in his chest. There I was, standing by the front gate, holding Lily, and standing right next to me, looking for all the world like he belonged there, was Marcus. Richard watched, paralyzed, from the driver's seat. He saw Marcus reach out and gently take Lily from my arms. He saw the way Lily leaned into him, comfortable and happy. He saw the soft, easy smile on my face as I watched them. It looked right. It looked like a family that didn't include him. He rolled down his window just a crack, needing to hear them, even though it felt like he was invading a private moment. "She's getting so big," Marcus was saying, bouncing Lily gently. "She's a real heartbreaker, just like her mom." I laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound. "Oh, stop it. I'm a mess half the time." "You're adorable," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a lower, more intimate register. "Seriously, Abigail, you're amazing. I don't know how you do it all alone." "I don't have much of a choice," I said softly. "You could, you know," Marcus said, his eyes locked on mine. "You shouldn't have to be alone. Lily, she needs a father figure. And you deserve someone to share the load. Someone to take care of you." I looked away, flustered. "Marcus, Richard gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He was witnessing his own worst nightmare. His future brother-in-law was actively courting the woman he loved, right in front of his eyes. He was about to throw open the car door and storm over there, consequences be damned, when another car screeched to a halt just behind his. It was Victoria. She had tracked Marcus's phone. She got out of her car, her face a mask of utter disbelief that quickly morphed into pure, unadulterated rage. She stormed over to where we were standing. "Marcus!" she shrieked. We all jumped. Marcus spun around, his face paling. "Vic, what are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" she echoed, her voice trembling with fury. "I've been calling you for an hour. You told me you were working late. And I find you here, playing house with her." She pointed a manicured, accusing finger at me. "It's not what it looks like, Vic," Marcus stammered, but he didn't hand Lily back to me. He held onto her like a shield. "Not what it looks like? You're holding her, baby. You're looking at her like you're in love with her." Victoria turned her venomous gaze on me. "And you little homewrecker, you knew he was my fiancé. You work in my family's building, and you try to steal my man right under my nose." "Victoria, please," I said, reaching for Lily, because she had started to whimper at the loud noises. "It's a misunderstanding. We're just neighbors." "Neighbors?" Victoria laughed, a harsh, crazy sound. "Don't lie to me. I see the way you look at him." She lunged at me then. Before I could react, her hand was in my hair, yanking hard. I cried out, stumbling back. Lily screamed in terror. "Get off her, Victoria!" Marcus yelled, trying to intervene without dropping the baby. But before he could, a strong hand grabbed Victoria's wrist and wrenched her away from me. It was Richard. "That is enough," Richard roared, his voice echoing down the street. He shoved his sister back, placing himself firmly between us. Victoria stared at him, her mouth agape. "Richard, you're defending her? Are you blind? She's seducing your brother-in-law." "She is doing no such thing," Richard said, his voice ice cold. "How do you know?" Victoria shrieked. "Look at them. He's holding her baby." Richard took a deep breath. He looked at me, then at Marcus, and finally back at his sister. He knew what he had to do. It was crazy. It was a lie, but it was the only way to end this. "Because," Richard said, his voice loud and clear, "Abigail is my girlfriend." The silence that fell over the street was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Victoria looked like she had been slapped. Marcus looked like he had been punched in the gut. And I just stared at Richard, completely stunned. "What?" Victoria whispered, horrified. "You and her. That's impossible. Richard, she's..." She's trash. She's a single mother, a widow. She's nothing. Watch your mouth, Victoria, Richard snarled, his eyes flashing dangerously. You are speaking about the woman I love, and I will not tolerate it. You love her? Victoria gasped, tears starting to stream down her face. Have you lost your mind? Does Mom know about this? She will never accept this, Richard. Never. I don't care what anyone thinks, Richard said. He turned to me, his eyes softening. He reached out and took a sobbing Lily from Marcus's stunned arms. Come on, sweetheart, he said to the baby, his voice incredibly gentle. Let's go inside. It's too loud out here for you. He put his free arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. Let's go home, Abigail. I was too shocked to argue. I just let him lead me through the gate and into my apartment building. Leaving Victoria and Marcus standing on the sidewalk, their world shattered into a million pieces. Once we were inside and the door was firmly bolted, Richard let out a long, shaky breath. He handed Lily back to me. Are you okay? He asked, his eyes searching my face for any sign of injury. Am I okay? I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. Richard, what did you just do? Why did you tell them that? It stopped them, didn't it? He said, running a hand through his hair. It was the only way to get her to back off. But it's a lie. And now everyone is going to know. Your sister is going to tell your mother, and, oh God, my life is going to be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be a lie, he said quietly. I froze. What? I meant what I said out there, Abigail. I want it to be real. I want to be with you. I want to take care of you and Lily. I just stared at him. He looked so sincere, so vulnerable, but I was terrified. He was rich, powerful, complicated. I was just me. Richard, we can't, I whispered. Your family, they'll eat me alive. Let me worry about my family, he said firmly. Just think about it, okay? Just think about giving us a real chance. While we were having this intense conversation outside on the sidewalk, another drama was unfolding. Victoria was hysterical. She turned on Marcus, shoving him hard in the chest. Tell me it's not true, she screamed. Tell me you don't love her. Marcus just stood there, looking at the closed door of my apartment building. The look on his face, the devastation when Richard claimed me, told Victoria everything she needed to know. You do love her, she whispered, her voice breaking. 7 years, Marcus. 7 years I've waited for you, and you throw it all away for a woman you've known for a month? I didn't mean for it to happen, Vic, he said, his voice hollow. It just did. She's different. She makes me feel alive, and I don't? She cried. I've given you everything. My family has given you everything. I know, he said sadly, and I'm grateful, but gratitude isn't love, Victoria. Victoria collapsed onto the curb, sobbing uncontrollably. Her perfect life was crumbling around her. Her brother was dating the woman she hated, and her fiancé was in love with the same woman. It was a nightmare. Back inside, Richard stayed for a long time. He helped me calm Lily down, and we sat on my worn-out couch in silence. Can I hug you? He asked, sounding like a shy teenager. I couldn't help but smile a little. Just a hug, I said. He wrapped his arms around me, and for the second time, I felt that overwhelming sense of safety. We sat like that for a long time. The tension of the day slowly ebbed away, replaced by a quiet, fragile intimacy. I should go, he said eventually, reluctantly pulling away. Yeah, I said softly. He stood up, walked to the door, and then paused. He turned back to me. a mischievous glint in his eye. Can I get an advance on that hug? Maybe. A kiss goodnight, I laughed, shaking my head. Pushing your luck, Stonehaven. Get out of here. He grinned and left. I locked the door behind him, leaning against it with a sigh. My life had just become infinitely more complicated, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel so alone. The next day at work was a battlefield. Victoria didn't just hate me now. She wanted me destroyed. She couldn't fire me because of Richard, so she decided to make my life a living hell in other ways. She knew Chloe, my friend and now manager, was ambitious and easily manipulated. She called Chloe into her office. "Chloe, darling, sit down," Victoria said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I have a proposition for you. How would you like to be my personal protege? I can fast-track your career. You could be running your own department in a year." Chloe's eyes widened. It was everything she had ever dreamed of. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Of course," Victoria purred. "But I need something in return. I need absolute loyalty, and I need you to help me manage a certain problem employee." Chloe knew exactly who she meant. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, looking at the golden ticket being offered to her. Then she made her choice. "Anything you need, Victoria. I'm your girl." Victoria smiled, a cold, reptilian smile. "Good. Let's start by making sure Abigail knows exactly who is in charge here." And so, the torment began. Chloe, my friend, changed overnight. She became a tyrant, overloading me with work, criticizing everything I did, and isolating me from the rest of the staff. "Abigail, redo this report. It's sloppy," she'd snap in front of everyone. "But I did it exactly how you asked," I'd protest. "Are you arguing with me? I'm your manager now, remember? Just do it." It was relentless, and through it all, I knew exactly who was pulling the strings. Victoria was watching, waiting for me to break, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I had survived worse than her. I would survive this too. The days that followed were a grueling test of endurance. Chloe, armed with her newfound power and Victoria's venomous agenda, became my personal tormentor. She piled my desk high with the most tedious, mind-numbing tasks, the work of 3 people, while the other 2 attendants in the gallery sat and chatted, painting their nails. I was constantly running, fetching, filing, organizing, my body aching with a fatigue that went bone deep. Every evening, I would collapse at home, too tired to even cook. My mother would have a simple meal ready, and she would watch me with worried eyes as I mechanically ate, my mind still buzzing from the day's relentless pace. Richard would come over. He'd see the exhaustion etched on my face, the new slump in my shoulders. "You're tired," he'd say, his voice full of a gentle concern that almost made me cry. "I'm fine," I'd lie, not wanting to burden him. He was the CEO. I was just an employee. How could I complain about his sister and her new pet project? But he knew. He wasn't stupid. He saw the way Chloe smirked when I walked by, the way Victoria watched me from afar, a smug, satisfied look on her face. One evening, he came over to find me asleep on the couch, my shoes still on. He gently took them off, his touch so light it didn't wake me. He saw the raw, red blisters on my heels. He sat down on the floor beside the couch and, with a tenderness that seemed completely at odds with the powerful man he was, began to massage my tired feet. I stirred, my eyes fluttering open. "Richard?" I murmured, still half asleep. "Shh," he whispered, not stopping. "Just rest. I've got you." He stayed until my mother had put Lily to bed, his presence a quiet, comforting anchor in my chaotic world. As he was leaving, he ran into Marcus at the gate. The two men stood there for a moment, the air thick with an unspoken tension. "Richard," Marcus said, his voice strained. "Marcus," Richard replied, his tone cool. "I need to talk to you." They walked to Richard's car, the silence between them heavy with everything that had happened. "What do you want?" Marcus asked, his arms crossed defensively. "I'm only going to say this once," Richard said, his voice low and serious. "I know what Victoria is doing. I know she's using Chloe to make Abigail's life a living hell. I'm handling it, but I need you to do something for me." Marcus just stared at him, waiting. "You need to protect her," Richard said. "When I'm not around, you need to watch out for her. Victoria is unstable. She's capable of anything. I'm busy. I have meetings. I can't be there every second. But you're right here. You're her neighbor. Promise me, you'll keep an eye on things." Marcus was stunned. He had expected a confrontation, a warning to stay away from me. He had not expected this. He had not expected Richard to entrust him with my safety. It was a tacit admission of how complicated the situation was. A strange, unspoken truce between two rivals. "Of course," Marcus said, his voice thick with a respect he hadn't expected to feel. "I'll make sure she's okay." Richard nodded, a silent thank you passing between them. He got in his car and drove away, leaving Marcus standing there, a new weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The next day, Richard came to the office with a storm in his eyes. He went to Victoria's office first. "I know what you're doing," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm warning you, Victoria. Stop it. Leave her alone. Or I swear, the bond we have as brother and sister will be broken, and you will not like the consequences." Victoria just scoffed, but she saw the look in his eyes and knew he wasn't bluffing. Then, he went to find Chloe. He didn't summon her to his office. He went to the gallery, in front of everyone. He walked right up to her, his presence silencing the entire room. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Who told you to call Abigail to the office last night to get that painting?" he asked, his voice like ice. Chloe's face went pale. I don't know what you mean, Mr. Stonehaven." His assistant, a tall, imposing man named Kim, stepped forward and slapped her, hard, twice. The sound echoed in the silent gallery. Chloe stumbled back, her hand flying to her cheek, her eyes wide with terror. "I will ask you again," Richard said calmly. "Who told you to do it?" I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, forgive me." Chloe sobbed, dropping to her knees. Kim slapped her again. "The CEO asked you a question. It was Miss Stonehaven," she finally shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "She made me do it," she said. "She said she wanted to scare Abigail, to frame her for theft." "I see," Richard said, his face a cold, hard mask. "You conspired to harm another employee. You created a hostile work environment. You are a liability to this company." Kim handed her an envelope. "This is your termination letter," Richard said, "and 3 months severance. Now, get your things and get out of my building. You have 5 minutes before I call security and have you removed for trespassing." Chloe just stared at him, her dreams of power and promotion turning to ash in her mouth. She was escorted out of the building, a cautionary tale for anyone who dared to cross Richard Stonehaven when it came to me. He then immediately had Kim fire the other 2 attendants in the gallery. "They stood by and watched it happen," he said. "They were complicit. I want them gone." Finally, he issued a company-wide memo. It was simple and direct. "Abigail Henderson is under my personal protection. Any employee found speaking ill of her, harassing her, or causing her any distress will be terminated immediately, without severance. The message was clear. I was untouchable. The office, which had been a whispered battlefield, fell silent. The stares stopped, the rumors died, and Victoria, for the first time, was truly afraid of what her brother was capable of. She retreated, defeated, to lick her wounds. That evening, Richard had to go on a week-long business trip to Asia. He came to my apartment to say goodbye. "I have to go," he said, his voice full of a reluctance I found incredibly endearing. "Will you be okay?" "I'll be fine," I said, a small smile on my face. "I have a feeling things at work are about to get a lot more peaceful." He pulled me into his arms. "I don't want to leave you," he whispered into my hair. "If Lily were a little older, I'd take you both with me." "A week will go by fast," I said, trying to comfort him and myself. We stood there for a long time, just holding each other. It felt so right, so natural. The thought of him being gone, even for just a week, left a hollow ache in my chest. The moment Richard's plane was in the air, Elizabeth and Victoria put their plan into motion. Richard's fierce protection of me had pushed his mother over the edge. She could no longer tolerate the existence of a woman who had such a powerful hold over her son. They knew I had recently bought a cheap, second-hand scooter to get to and from work, a small step towards independence. Victoria, her heart now cold and hard with a thirst for revenge, hired someone to tamper with it. The plan was simple and horrific. Loosen the bolts on the rear wheel. Cut the brake line just enough so it would fail under pressure. They wanted me to have an accident that would remove me from the equation, permanently. That afternoon, Marcus came to my office. "Hey," he said, his smile a little strained. "Can I borrow your scooter? I just need to run across town to pick up a file, and taking the car is a nightmare with traffic." "Sure," I said, handing him the keys without a second thought. "But be careful, it's a little rickety." "I'll be fine," he said. "Oh, and can I catch a ride home with you this evening?" I hesitated. I knew how Victoria would react if she saw us leaving together. "I don't know, Marcus. I don't want any more trouble." "Please, Abby," he said, his voice soft. "We're neighbors. It's just a ride." I sighed. "Okay, fine." He smiled, a flash of the old, easygoing Marcus. "Thanks. I'll be back in a bit." He left, and I went back to work, completely unaware that I had just handed him a death sentence. He wasn't 5 blocks from the office when it happened. He was approaching a busy intersection. The light turned yellow. He squeezed the brakes, but nothing happened. The lever went limp in his hand. He tried to slow down, to swerve, but it was too late. As he entered the intersection, the rear wheel, which had been wobbling for the last 2 blocks, finally gave way. The scooter went down, sending him skidding across the asphalt directly into the path of an oncoming delivery truck. The sound of the impact was sickening. Victoria was in her office, watching the security feed from the parking garage on her laptop. She saw that my scooter was gone. A cold, triumphant smile spread across her face. "It's done," she thought. "She's gone." To be sure, she walked down to the gallery. She saw me sitting at my desk, working. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't me. I was still here, which meant someone else had taken the scooter. She ran, panic seizing her heart, down to the security desk in the lobby. "Frank, did you see Abigail leave?" she asked the guard, her voice trembling. "No, Miss Stonehaven," he said. "She's still upstairs. But Mr. Vance left on her scooter about 20 minutes ago. Said he was going to pick up a file." Victoria felt the world tilt. "Marcus?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. He took the scooter. She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely dial his number. It rang once, twice, and then a strange voice answered. A woman's voice. "Hello, who is this?" Victoria demanded. "Where is Marcus? Are you a relative of the owner of this phone?" The woman asked, her voice calm and professional. "There's been an accident. He's being transported to Harborview Medical Center. You should get here as quickly as possible." The phone slipped from Victoria's numb fingers and clattered to the floor. "Marcus," she breathed, her face ashen. "Oh, God, what have I done?" She ran out of the building, her mind a screaming vortex of terror and regret. She ran, heedless of the traffic, of the people staring at her. She just ran, the name of the man she had just condemned echoing in her head. Back in the office, the news spread like wildfire. A colleague came running into the gallery, her face pale. "Abigail, have you heard? Marcus Vance was in a terrible accident. They say he might not make it." She paused, her eyes wide, and "They said he was riding your scooter when it happened. The back wheel just came off." I stared at her, the words not making sense. "My scooter? The wheel came off? It was brand new. How could that happen?" And then a horrifying realization dawned on me. If Marcus hadn't borrowed the scooter, that would have been me. That truck would have hit me. The world went dark at the edges. I sank into my chair, my body trembling uncontrollably. Someone had tried to kill me, and Marcus had taken my place. The hospital was a sterile, white blur. Marcus was in surgery, and Victoria was a ghost haunting the waiting room, her face tear-streaked and hollow. I sat in a corner, numb with shock and a creeping, icy dread. This was my fault. My scooter, my life that he had inadvertently saved. But the shock soon gave way to a cold, hard certainty. This was not an accident. I had enemies, powerful, ruthless enemies, and I knew with a sickening clarity who was behind this. Just then, Elizabeth, Richard's mother, walked into the waiting room. She looked regal and composed, as always, but her eyes were flinty. She walked right past her distraught daughter and stopped in front of me. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low and devoid of any warmth. "The rooftop garden, now." I followed her, my legs feeling like lead. We stood on the roof, the city spread out below us like a glittering, indifferent carpet. The wind whipped around us, cold and sharp. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice flat. And then she did something I never, ever expected. She sank to her knees, this proud, powerful matriarch on her knees in front of me. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking for the first time. "Leave my son alone." I stared at her, stunned into silence. "You don't understand," she continued, her voice thick with a desperation that was almost painful to witness. "He is my only son, my heir. He is supposed to have a perfect life, a perfect wife, a perfect family. You are not that. You are a complication, a mistake, and you are destroying him. You are turning him against his own family. I am begging you, let him go." I knelt down in front of her, my own tears starting to fall. "Mrs. Stonehaven, please, get up," I pleaded. "You don't have to do this." "I do," she insisted, grabbing my hands, her grip surprisingly strong. Promise me you will leave him. I'll give you anything, money, a house, anything you want. Just disappear from his life." And in that moment, looking into her tear-filled, desperate eyes, I knew it was over. How could I build a life with a man whose mother despised me so much she would kneel at my feet and beg me to leave? How could Lily grow up in a family filled with so much hatred? I couldn't do that to them. I couldn't do that to myself. The gap between our worlds was too vast. The chasm was uncrossable. Okay, I whispered, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. I'll leave him. She let out a sob of pure relief, her body slumping. I helped her to her feet, my own heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I don't want your money, I said, my voice barely audible over the wind. My love for your son was never about that. I turned and walked away, leaving her alone on the rooftop. The decision was made. The dream was over. I went back to my apartment and packed a small bag. I blocked Richard's number. I deleted his contact information. I resigned from my job via email. And then I found a new one. A simple, anonymous job, stacking shelves at a small, family-owned grocery store a few miles away. It was a step back, a return to the life of struggle I had fought so hard to escape. But it was a life free from the Stonehavens. It was a life where I could be safe. A week later, Richard returned. He was happy, relaxed, eager to see me. He went straight from the airport to my apartment, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He found the door locked, the windows dark. He called my phone, but it went straight to voicemail. A cold knot of dread began to form in his stomach. He drove to the office, thinking maybe I was working late. They told him I had resigned. Panic set in. He drove back to my neighborhood, his mind racing. And that's when he saw me, through the window of the small grocery store, wearing a faded blue apron, lifting a heavy box of canned goods. He stormed into the store, his face a thundercloud. Abigail, what the hell is going on? I turned, my face a carefully constructed mask of indifference. Oh, it's you, I said, my voice cold. What do you want? What do I want? He repeated, his voice rising in disbelief. I've been trying to reach you for a week. You quit your job. You won't answer my calls. What is happening? I'm busy, I said, turning my back on him. I have to work. Abigail, look at me, he said, grabbing my arm, his touch gentle but firm. I spun around, my eyes flashing with a fake anger that was meant to protect us both. I'm tired of you, Richard, I said, the words like poison on my tongue. I'm tired of your drama, your family, your world. It was a mistake. I never loved you. I was just grateful. That's all. Now, please, leave me alone. You're bothering me. He stared at me, his face a mixture of hurt and confusion. I don't believe you, he whispered. Someone said something to you. Was it Victoria? Was it my mother? No one said anything. I snapped, my voice cracking. I don't want this anymore. Go away. Get out of here before I call the manager. He wouldn't leave. He just stood there, his eyes searching my face, trying to find a crack in the wall I had built around my heart. Go, I screamed, my control finally snapping. I pointed towards the door. Or, I swear, I'll set my dog on you. It was a ridiculous, empty threat. I didn't even own a dog, but it was all I had. He finally left, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, and then I collapsed against a shelf of cereal boxes, the sobs I had been holding back for a week finally breaking free. Richard was heartbroken, but he was also a fighter. He knew me. He knew the woman he loved would never be so cruel without a reason. He called his assistant. Kim, he said, his voice hard as steel. I need you to find out what happened while I was away. Everything. What did my mother and sister do? And find out where Abigail is working now. I want to buy the entire damn store. The next day, Kim had the full, ugly story. The rooftop confrontation with his mother, the resignation, the new job, and the most damning piece of information, the forensic report on my scooter. It had been tampered with. It was attempted murder. And the person who had hired the mechanic was his sister, Victoria. He went to the hospital. Victoria was there, sitting by Marcus's bedside. He was still in a coma, a still, silent figure in a web of tubes and wires. Victoria looked like she had aged 10 years in a week. "Richard," she whispered, her eyes red and swollen. "I know what you did," he said, his voice shaking with a rage so profound it was almost silent. "You tried to kill her. You tried to kill Abigail." Victoria just started to sob, her body racked with guilt and grief. "I know," she cried. "I'm so sorry, Richard. I never meant for this to happen to Marcus. I was so angry, so jealous. I just wanted her gone." "She could have died, Victoria," he said, his voice breaking. "And Lily would have been an orphan. Is that what you wanted?" He couldn't even look at her. He turned and walked away. He went to his mother's house. "I'm leaving," he announced, walking into the living room where she was sitting. "I'm moving out, and I am going to be with Abigail, whether you approve or not. You tried to destroy our happiness. You tried to buy her off. You drove her away. Well, it's not going to work. I love her, and if you cannot accept that, then you will lose me too." And then he walked out, leaving his mother alone in her vast, empty mansion. He packed a bag and showed up on my doorstep that evening. I opened the door to find him standing there, a suitcase at his feet, a look of fierce determination on his face. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I'm moving in," he said simply. "My mother kicked me out. I have nowhere else to go. You can't turn me away. I'll be homeless. That's not my problem," I said, trying to close the door. But he was too strong. "Please, Abigail," he said, his voice softening. "Don't shut me out. Let me stay. Let me take care of you." And what could I do? He looked so lost, so determined, and a part of me, a part I had tried so hard to crush, soared with a wild, treacherous hope. I let him in. He slept on my lumpy couch that night. The next morning, I woke up to find him in my kitchen, making pancakes for Lily, a smudge of flour on his nose. He had cleaned the entire apartment. My clothes and Lily's were washed and neatly folded. He had brought a sense of order to my chaos. That night, he was shivering on the couch. I brought him a blanket. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're going to get sick out here," I said. "Then let me sleep in your room," he said, a hopeful glint in his eye. "No way. Please, I'll sleep on the floor." I sighed. "Fine, but you're not sleeping on the floor." That night, we slept in the same bed for the first time, with Lily sleeping peacefully in her crib beside us. He didn't try anything. He just lay there, his presence a warm, comforting weight beside me. I woke up in the middle of the night to find that I had rolled over and was curled up against him, my head on his chest. He was awake. His arms were wrapped around me, holding me tight. "I love you, Abigail," he whispered into the darkness. And this time, I didn't push him away. Our fragile peace was shattered a few days later by a knock at the door. It was his mother. "Richard," she said, her voice tight. "Come home." "No," he said, standing his ground. She looked past him and saw me. "We need to talk," she said, her eyes fixed on me. The final confrontation had arrived. Elizabeth Stonehaven stepped into my small, humble apartment, her presence immediately sucking all the air out of the room. She looked around at my worn-out furniture, the mismatched second-hand decor. A faint, almost imperceptible look of distaste on her face. Richard stood beside me, a protective hand on the small of my back. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice tense. "I came to see my granddaughter," she said, her eyes landing on Lily, who was playing on the floor. She walked over and picked up a small wooden block, turning it over in her manicured fingers. "I've thought about what you said, Richard, and I've been thinking about you, Abigail." She turned to face me, and her expression was one I had never seen before. It was tired. The fight seemed to have gone out of her. "I was wrong," she said, the words sounding foreign and difficult on her tongue. "I have been unfair to you. My son loves you, and you make him happy. I can't fight that anymore." Richard and I just stared at her, stunned into silence. "I would like to formally invite you both to come home," she said, her voice regaining a fraction of its usual authority. "It's time we started acting like a family." It was a truce, a surrender, and it was everything we had been hoping for. That evening, Richard and I packed our few belongings, and, with Lily in my arms, we left my small apartment for the last time. We moved into the Stonehaven mansion, into a world of unimaginable wealth and privilege. But our newfound peace was fragile, because Elizabeth Stonehaven was a master strategist. She had not surrendered. She had simply retreated to fight another day. Her acceptance was a lie, a beautifully crafted performance designed to lull Richard into a false sense of security, to separate him from me so she could strike again. A few nights later, when Richard was working late, she found her opportunity. I was in the kitchen, preparing a bottle for Lily, when I smelled it, a faint, acrid smell of smoke. At first, I thought it was just the fireplace, but it grew stronger, thicker. Panic seized my heart. I ran into the hallway, and my blood ran cold. A thick, black cloud of smoke was billowing from under the door of the nursery, where Lily was sleeping. The house was on fire. I didn't think. I just reacted. I soaked a dish towel in the sink, wrapped it around my face, and plunged into the smoke-filled room. I snatched a sleeping Lily from her crib, wrapping her in her thickest blanket, and ran. The smoke was blinding, choking. I stumbled down the grand staircase, my lungs burning, and burst out into the cold night air, gasping for breath. Lily was safe. She was coughing, but she was okay. But as I looked back at the house, at the flames licking at the windows of the nursery, a cold, hard rage, unlike anything I had ever felt before, washed over me. This was not an accident. This was her. I handed a crying Lily to a frantic housekeeper and marched back into the house. I found Elizabeth in the living room, standing by the window, watching the fire with a strange, calm detachment. "You did this," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You tried to kill my daughter. You tried to kill your own granddaughter." She turned to me, and for the first time, there was no pretense, no mask, just pure, cold hatred. "She is not my granddaughter," she hissed, "and you are not my daughter-in-law. You are a disease, and I will cut you out. You want me gone," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You want me dead? Fine." I walked over to the fruit bowl on the grand dining table. I picked up a small, sharp paring knife. I walked back to her and held it out to her, handle first. "Here," I said, my voice ringing with a terrifying calm. "Do it. If my death is what it will take for you to be at peace, then do it. But you have to promise me one thing. You have to promise me you'll take care of Lily. You'll raise her, and you'll love her. If you can promise me that, then I'm ready." She just stared at the knife, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and disbelief. I took her hand and forced the knife into it, I pressed the tip of the blade against my own stomach. "Do it, Elizabeth," I whispered, my eyes boring into hers. "End this. Right here, right now. You think you're strong enough? Prove it. Kill me." Her hand was trembling. The powerful, indomitable matriarch was shaking like a leaf. She could orchestrate a fire, hire thugs, ruin lives from a distance. But this was different. This was real. This was blood and bone. "You're insane," she breathed, her voice a terrified whisper. "No," I said, pushing the knife harder against myself. "I'm a mother, and I will do anything to protect my child, even if it means making you a murderer. Push it, Elizabeth, or are you a coward?" She let out a strangled cry and threw the knife to the floor. It clattered against the marble, the sound echoing in the silent, smoke-filled room. "I can't," she sobbed, her body slumping in defeat. "I can't." She finally looked at me then, truly looked at me, and saw not an enemy, not a gold digger, but a woman who loved her son, a mother who would die for her child. She saw herself, and in that moment, the hatred that had poisoned her for so long finally broke. She collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands, her body racked with sobs of guilt and shame. "I'm sorry," she wept. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." I stood over her, my own tears finally falling. Tears of rage, of grief, of a profound and soul-crushing sadness for what our lives had become. 2 months later, Richard and I were married in a small, private ceremony in the garden of the now repaired Stonehaven mansion. Elizabeth stood beside us, her face pale but her eyes clear. She had confessed everything to Richard and to the authorities. The fire was ruled an accident. The investigation closed, but the truth lay between us, a scar that would never fully fade, but one that we were all determined to heal from. Elizabeth devoted herself to Lily. She became the doting, loving grandmother she had always refused to be, as if trying to atone for her sins through 1,000 small acts of kindness. She and I forged a fragile, tentative peace, a relationship built not on affection, but on a shared, fierce love for Richard and Lily. And Marcus? He woke up, weeks after the accident. He opened his eyes to find Victoria sitting by his bedside, as she had been every single day. She had never left his side. She had bathed him, read to him, talked to him, her love a constant, unwavering vigil. And in the long, silent hours of his recovery, Marcus finally understood. Love wasn't a spark, a fleeting feeling of excitement. It was this loyalty, this devotion, this quiet, unbreakable strength. He had been chasing a fantasy with me, while the greatest love of his life was sitting right in front of him, waiting for him to see her. When he was well enough, they were married. They moved to America, away from the ghosts and the drama of Seattle, and they were happy, truly happy. Life settled into a new, beautiful rhythm. Richard and I took over the company together, our strengths complementing each other perfectly. I brought a heart and a humanity to the cold world of business, and he taught me how to be strong, how to fight for what I believed in. And one evening, as we were putting a now toddling Lily to bed, I turned to him with a small, secret smile. "I have something to tell you," I said. He looked at me, his eyes full of love. "What is it?" "Well," I said, taking his hand and placing it on my still flat stomach, "it seems like Lily is going to be a big sister." The look of pure, unadulterated joy on his face was a sight I will treasure for the rest of my life. Our journey had been a storm, a baptism by fire. We had been broken, betrayed, and pushed to the very brink. But we had survived, and in the end, we had found what we were all searching for: a family. Not a perfect family, but a real one, forged in fire, bound by love, and stronger than we had ever dared to imagine.